y'all. It's Shitpost Friday.
The medieval folk instrument that's way cooler than guitar, why giving a guitar a CAT scan might be a good idea, and which guitar player is the best visual artist of all time, all next on Shitpost Friday. Hey guys, how's it going? Brad the Guitarologist here for another Shitpost Friday. This makes the fourth Shitpost Friday since we have brought it back from the dead and gotten on a good roll here. We have been growing the audience every week. Last week's Shitpost Friday has eclipsed 30,000 views, which is really back in line with what we were doing 3 years ago when we stopped Shitpost Friday. So I'm really happy to see that. And thanks to everybody who has been sharing these. It's because of you that I'm going to keep doing them. Okay, first order of business, the new microphone of the week is this thing. This is a vintage, I believe it's a 1970s, possibly early 1970s, AKG D200E. I think it sounds pretty fantastic. You can tell me what you think, and you can compare it to last week's video and the video from week before last. In last week's video, we used this Shure 55 AS from 1961. Give you a little better shot of it there. Hopefully you can kind of see that and sort of what it looks like. I think it's great on vocals. I also think it would be great on drums. I think it would be great miking up an acoustic guitar. They're actually pretty inexpensive. For a nice vintage AKG microphone made in Austria. I mean, it's kind of hard to beat these when you find them on eBay. A lot of times you find them at a really good price. But anyway, enough for the microphone. Let me know what you think about it. I am using a little pop filter on it, so I'm adding that just so I can filter out some of the wind noises, obviously. First order of business, I wanted to check this video out that this girl made, who is a folk artist, I guess, for lack of a better term. I'd call her a musical artist, a YouTuber. But she does really, really cool stuff. And she uses one of the, if not the coolest instrument, I think, of all time, even over and above the guitar, in my estimation, the Hurdy, which I absolutely love. I love the sound of a hurdy-gurdy. I love the concept of a hurdy-gurdy, the way the thing is played, the articulation you can get with a hurdy-gurdy when you're, doing the crank and you can go one direction and go back. I just love the fact that it works on the same principle as a violin, but it's one of those things that you can almost get a continuous stream out of the thing just because of the way that it's cranked. And you can get these really rhythmic bowing techniques too with the way that you crank and your technique on that and all that. And I like the fact that, it has push buttons, almost similar to piano keys, that it has polyphony, so you can play chords on the thing. Just a really, really neat and cool instrument. And this girl does a really good job of demonstrating it. And I thought we would check her out here now.
Hello there, Gurdians! My name is Patty, and this is my Gurdy. Something that I definitely appreciate a lot about this exact paddleboard is that it's quite small and compact and amazing to travel with. I will start with my clean sound, which is just the raw sound of my output.
So obviously that is not a 100% acoustic sound that she's getting out of that right now. She could mic it up and get an acoustic sound out of it as well, but I think she's using some kind of onboard pickup of some sort in order to run through her pedal board that she has here. But you have to really check this out. She gets some quite amazing sounds with this pedal board.
Next, the phone sound, which is used only 1 second in The Longing in the intro. And we just landed at our third
just sounds
sound,
killer.
Which is the classic stage sound. So this third sound is the basic sound that I almost always play with on stage.
I honestly, I feel like I could, if I had a hurdy-gurdy, I could play the shit out of this thing all day. I probably would never put it down. It just seems like a magnetic instrument to me. So I'm just really drawn to this thing. I need one of these in my life. I don't know what the cheapest hurdy-gurdy you can buy is, but man, I might have to really look into it. I know at one point somebody was making a hurdy-gurdy kit that you could build yourself. If I can find that, I will put it up on the screen or something here where you can check it out. But I mean, that's a possibility. But definitely, I would love to have just a half decent hurdy-gurdy, you know, like something maybe even just mid-range, if not professional grade, something mid-range, you know, that I could kind of work with and learn on. You know, I'd like to branch out, man, and do some different things. You know, music is really too broad of a thing to just stick to one instrument your entire life. I mean, if you're not at least trying some other things out. And to me, hurdy-gurdy is about the coolest damn thing you could possibly get into besides guitar. But let's check out some of these other sounds that she's getting with this thing with the pedal board, and you'll see what I mean, how cool this thing is.
The next sound is the shimmer sound, and it sounds like a hurdy-gurdy on dope. Comment below which one.
I mean, just killer, right? And the cool thing about this is, you know, you wouldn't, all this stuff that you've invested in for electric guitar, all your pedals, all your amplifiers, all that stuff would still operate if you got an electric hurdy-gurdy. I mean, you know, the possibilities are kind of endless when you consider all the sounds that you could get from pedals, man. And she goes a little bit more in depth here with some of the other sounds. You got to check this out.
But I know which sound you've all been waiting for, the heavy metal solo sound. But before I get to this one, let me tell you a little story. There's a common trend in YouTube comment sections that if an artist plays with a pedal board, that's looked at as super cool and inventive. But if they use effect sounds in the studio, on a studio recording and on a CD, it's kind of frowned upon because, oh, how can you ruin the sound of your instrument with studio effects? But let me tell you, the effects that we're using in the studio or that we're trying to mimic on the pedal board are one and the same. None of them is better or worse than the other. In the studio, they might just be a little bit more perfected. So if somebody out there can explain to me why it's such a big difference as a viewer, I'd be very interested actually. Also, don't forget to like, because now you'll get the heavy.
Well, sweetheart, I can tell you what the difference is. The difference is some people are stupid and some people know what they're talking about. That's about as simple as I could put it. Some people are just blooming morons, and you really shouldn't listen to them, particularly in comment sections on YouTube. See what I mean when she moves the crank backwards?
And as a little extra, you'll get gently distorted stuff.
I mean... And here's the thing, I would be willing to bet that that sound that she's getting right there, she's getting a distorted tone with a like a piezo pickup. So if she actually had a magnetic pickup in this thing, you know, that was contoured to fit, that was specially made for the hurdy-gurdy, which who knows if that is even a thing. Maybe it could become a thing if enough of us pick up the hurdy-gurdy. Somebody's going to make an electric pickup for the hurdy-gurdy. if enough of us start playing the damn thing, right? Surely. Especially if enough guitar players start playing one and demanding that we have these additional accessories and things. Somebody would have to come up with it. I'm really intrigued by this instrument. I'm just really fascinated by it. I want one so bad. Everybody who I've ever talked to who knows about a hurdy-gurdy and knows what it is everybody wants one. And where's the market for hurdy-gurdies, man? I really want a freaking hurdy-gurdy. Somebody in the comments, point me to an affordable hurdy-gurdy that I can buy and start playing and start learning how to play. This would be just freaking awesome. But what I was going to say there is, if you had an actual pickup, a magnetic pickup for hurdy-gurdy, that distortion sound that she's getting right there could be even better, could be just killer. Again, I'm not sure exactly what her equipment is, how she's amplifying the thing, but man, it could sound really, really awesome. It sounds great as it is. I mean, it's a very versatile instrument when you add the pedal board, but I think it could be even more versatile if you mess a little bit around with the method by which you're amplifying it. Another article I ran across in the last week was this one where someone is CAT scanning a vintage Martin D18, and this guy is putting a 1937 Martin D18 on a CAT scan to try to get to the bottom of the mystery of why the thing sounds so good. My interest in the science of sound stemmed from my inability to understand most modern luthiers' theories or philosophies. One issue I've struggled with is why so many of the best examples of vintage guitars that are awesome on so many levels are now approaching 100 years old. Why doesn't the same abundance of excellent sounding instruments exist in the modern era? Something was definitely spot on with these older guitars, but when the Tonewood stars are aligned, modern makers do occasionally come close to hitting the mark. So I don't think it's totally a question of those older instruments maturing through aging. I feel these guitars were good from the start. They probably were good from the start. I'm sure that they were probably 90 or 95% of the way there from the outset. However, I do believe that aging does play a huge, massive role in how the saps inside of wood dry out and crystallize over time, become harder, how molds and things like this develop on the inside of instruments and change the sound that way, whether it's mellowing it out or sweetening it or adding maybe to it in other ways. I think that the kinds of glues that were used back then, just hide glue, it crystallizes and hardens a little bit better than some of the modern glues that are used. Definitely finish wise, certain finishes sound better than others for sure. So there's a lot that goes into it, and like I said, probably 90 or 95% of the way there from the factory. But acoustic instruments absolutely do change their sound over time, and a lot of it has to do with, I believe, the drying out of the wood as it ages, the crystallization of any moisture or oils or saps that are inside of it, and the way that changes character over time is pretty apparent, I think, because I've got a couple of vintage acoustics, and I've played a lot of vintage acoustics, and there's something about an aged acoustic that is definitely different and more open sounding. It's almost as if the wood itself is more open to being vibrated in certain frequencies than a lot of modern instruments. I think also a lot of it has to do with the fact that these woods in these instruments have been asked to play these chords and make these vibrations so many times throughout their lifespan that it has become kind of easier for these instruments to do it. So like the more you ask an instrument to, okay, I'm going to play this E chord, and you have to give me every overtone and nuance and the sound and all the little character overtones, all of it, and you're asking an instrument to do that. The first time you ask the instrument to do that, it may be okay at it. But I think over time, the more you ask this instrument, this living piece of wood, to reproduce this sound, the easier it becomes because it's done it that many times before. So maybe that makes some bit of sense. It definitely makes sense in my mind because, wood is a fibrous, under a microscope, you can look at wood and it's just very fibrous. There are a lot of strands of these fibers that are kind of interwoven and locked in. You can look at under, like I said, just get a microscope and look at a piece of wood and you'll see these fibers and you'll see how they're locked together to form the wood structure. And any sap that's within this wood is going to be, it's going to be either in a more sappy form or a more crystal hardened form. And I think over time that changes. And yet again, like I said before, the more you ask the instrument to this piece of wood to vibrate in these different ways, the easier it's going to be as time progresses. That's my idea of it. But I just thought it was interesting that this person went as far as to put his 1937 Martin D18 in a CAT scan to try to figure out thicknesses in different parts of the instrument. I don't know how much it's going to really help him try to reproduce the sound of this instrument in another instrument. I think more likely the aging process that some people have come up with for wood. A lot of people are rapidly aging tone woods now, and I'm not talking about tone wood for your fucking electric. I don't care about tone woods on electrics. I think that's a completely different thing, and it really doesn't matter a whole lot until you get into semi-hollow and hollow body guitars. I think that probably makes a bit of a difference. But on like a solid body electric, it's very, very minimal, if even existing at all. That just the science of the way the sound is produced. I think obviously there's tone wood is kind of a myth on solid body electrics, but on acoustic guitars, it absolutely matters. Every piece of the acoustic instrument matters to the tone, and but I just don't know how much this kind of data set is going to help you in trying to reproduce the sound of an old instrument. It might, like I said, it might get you 90% of the way there, but I don't think it's gonna. There's always going to be variables. Also, this article I saw just a few minutes ago I thought was kind of silly, honestly. John Mayer says playing guitar naked after sex with a little gut hanging over is very memorable for a partner. You got to love the way that Guitar.com has phrased this title. That's a very click-hoary title. John Mayer has confessed he likes playing guitar naked after sex with a little gut hanging over, explaining that it's a very memorable experience for a partner. I mean, should you ever find yourself in the position of being John Mayer's lover? Oh my God. This. Okay, I think we're just going to discontinue reading this crap. I'll let you can read some of this if you want to. I completely disagree with this. You should never play guitar to have sex with someone, but a little naked guitar playing after is very memorable. Why would he say that? Why would you not play guitar to try to have sex with somebody? Maybe that's like the only thing that you've got. Maybe John, it's easy for John Mayer to say that because the dude, he's actually a good looking dude. What if you're not so good looking though? What if you're no John Mayer and you have to try to get it on with somebody, and how else are you going to do it? Maybe you're the best guitar player of all time, and that's all you've really got going for you. What if you're like Max Ostro? I'm not picking on Max Ostro. The dude is just an insane guitar player, but he looks like this, it might be a little different if you're Max Ostro. You might actually be okay to try to play guitar to have sex with somebody, because how else are you going to be able to pull that off? Again, no shade to Max Ostro, no shade to anybody who looks like Max Ostro, but my point is, not everybody can look like John Mayer, right? And play like John Mayer.
Venus in a glass skull.
Okay, next up in the news, I wanted to show you a couple of things here that I saw. So the band Tool has released this limited edition sculpture, which is a skull with like an embryo or a fetus inside of the skull. It's like a crystal skull. And of course, the crystal skull has a long history. You guys have probably, if you've seen the movie House, is it House or House 2? Anyway. Regardless, Both of those movies are fantastic. So, it's a form of visual art, and it's just interesting that bands such as Tool would be getting into not just the music side of things, but selling their visual art as well. Now, Tool has kind of always been really big on their visual art. All of their CD packaging, album packaging has always really been a cut above just about everybody else for this generation, in my opinion, because of just the sheer amount of inventiveness and effort that they put into such things as their packaging. Nobody else really that I can think of even comes close. Whether it was the lenticular sleeve on the Anima CD back from 1996, or whether it was the layers from Lateralis from 2001, or whether it was the stereoscopic packaging that you got with the 10,000 Days release. It wasn't inventive in the sense that they invented something new, because that's really an old technology, about 100 years old. I think the Victorians even did stereoscopic imaging, but it's just the fact that they were kind of the first to incorporate that sort of thing into CD packaging, at least to my knowledge they were. But it's interesting to me, and it got me thinking, are there other artists who do this sort of thing? And the other day, I also ran into this article where it was talking about George Lynch, of course, of Lynch Mob, Dokken, and he was actually selling some of his art. So here is this article from fullinbloom.com, and you can see some of the visual art that George Lynch has created that I think he's actually selling as like limited edition prints. Okay, so after making this report, I found a website you can go to where you can check out these pieces of artwork in more detail. Also, you can sign up your email address and phone number, and someone will contact you with pricing and all that kind of stuff. They did send me pricing, which I will put up on the screen here. They emailed it to me. But these are the prices they're currently asking. I'm assuming that as the supply dwindles, the prices may change, which is why they didn't publish them in the first place. But anyway, here they are if you're interested.
It's on your Patreon. How's all that going?
Well, it's a learning curve for sure, but it's really exciting. I just never want to be that guy that thinks about doing something and activates all these ideas and then never really follows through. So I thought it was worth a shot, and so I'm doing a 3-month kind of put my toe in the water kind of thing. I'm giving it my all. I'm trying to build really good content. I hope people will find edifying and interesting, and do stuff across the board, lifestyle, and obviously all the different aspects of music areas that my life touches, but emphasizing lessons and gear. I can't do something that I end up hating because I become a slave to it. For instance, when I started to do videotapings for my lessons, I did it in the studio with a videographer, and it was real kind of more of a formal setting. It was a little more kind of under the gun, and I didn't feel really relaxed.
That's something where you actually bring somebody in?
Oh, yeah. I did that with most of my content for the first 3 months here, is work with a gentleman that's really talented. And some of it I need that because I'm not technically astute enough this stuff to do it myself. And I'm not an idiot. I could probably figure it out, obviously, but I don't want to. I have too many things going on. I don't have enough time to sit here and learn to be a videographer and an audio guy and an editor. And you know what? No thanks.
Well, this is kind of an interesting sidetrack, and it's probably a bit of a product of the pandemic, is that all these musicians who could not tour, they suddenly had to find another method by which to make their daily bread, right? And who can blame them? Who can blame anybody for trying to do this? Because, frankly, it's a bit of a dream job. You at least in theory and on paper, you kind of get to stay at home a lot. You don't have to lug a bunch of heavy gear around. You don't have to deal with a lot of, backstage people or VIPs or, any of this kind of stuff, or sign anything, or, you can just be somebody as famous as George Lynch and sort of sit at home and keep doing it and keep being famous, like George Lynch. And I guess for him, he could do it and not even have to learn how to do it. He could just hire somebody to do all of his editing and stuff for him, which, more power to him, I guess. kind of makes me a bit jealous because I hate editing and I've had to learn how to do it all. But, fuck you, George. But no, seriously, it's definitely something that a lot more rock musicians have gotten into, and I believe will continue to try to get into as the years progress, because it's just going to be the easier thing to do, really, right? I mean, to stay at home and to try to reach fans that way, to try to build a fan base that's just purely online. And if you're somebody like George Lynch, if you have a virtuoso level of playing skill on an instrument, it probably is a good idea to stay home and show off some of your licks and try to do some teaching, maybe on the side, do the Patreon thing, sell some of your signatures, and maybe hawk some guitars, to fans. And that's going to be something that will, I'm sure, carry him well into retirement, and he should be fine with that. And like I said, more power to him. But really, the reason we came here was for his visual art. So let's get to that part here.
I was actually working on the artwork this morning. Or not, I'm not personally working on the artwork, but I did a really interesting thing for that. It wasn't exclusively for that, but I did this company called Scene 4 that I've worked with over the years here and there. And I used to do actual canvas art pieces. And I've done probably 100 of them. This was years ago. And we've remained friends. And they did artwork for me. They designed the artwork for the Souls of We album cover. Probably my favorite album cover I've ever done since I've been doing this. So they have this new method, this art thing that they do. Where they get guitarists, known guitarists, and then they built this glove, this black glove that has all these electrodes and lights and LEDs and lasers wired up to it. And then they go into a studio, a blacked out studio. They hook up this whole cable that runs off your arm into these computers, and it generates this whole crazy light show that reacts. The lights are reacting to your touch. So as you play, you're creating this pantheon of different effects, which is mesmerizing and unbelievable when you're in the room doing it. And I just saw the results yesterday. They sent me what they're coming up with. So they're going to be making or offering prints of these art pieces. So I had the idea that I might want to do that for the album cover as well. So
okay, well, what you heard there was a little bit different than what I had thought initially. So it's actually the artwork that was produced there was not produced by him. He didn't paint it or anything like that, at least not there. But that got me thinking, though, too, about other, famous rock musicians or famous rock guitarists who are also visual artists. And I was trying to rack my brain and think of some of the other ones, and the obvious ones that pop up would be like John Lennon and his little, doodles that he would make. He was often thought to have given away quite a lot of these. He would make these little doodles and give them away to people or fans or people who just happened to be nearby at the time that he completed them. Maybe some of the little doodles were of the people he was actually doodling. But he was known kind of as a really sparse artist, in the sense that he would try to make a drawing with as few lines as possible and still have it evoke something or be, capture the personality of someone or something like that. And I think he was rather good at it as far as that goes. A lot of his artworks have kind of become iconic over time because of their association with John Lennon and with the Beatles, but also in their own right as, unique pieces of visual art. The other one I could think of was Kurt Cobain. He actually did the cover for the album Incesticide. That's one of his works of art. I've also seen other works of his that ended up on concert posters and things like that, that are kind of cool, kind of evocative, definitely different. Certainly heroin inspired. Those are the main two that I could really think of. But some of the ones that I did not know about when I went to research this, Bob Dylan is quite the visual artist as well. In addition to being one of the, obviously the greatest songwriters of the 20th century, or any century perhaps, he's also a really accomplished visual artist. And I have to say, I really enjoyed some of the pieces of art that I saw from Bob Dylan. Also, not to be outdone, Paul McCartney, at one point in his career, he started to focus a little bit more heavily on his visual art. I think it was like around about the mid-'80s. He had always kind of dabbled a little bit here and there, but never really got serious about it, he said, until I think he said about the mid-'80s when I was reading about it before, and kind of went full bore in it. It looked like, some of the stuff that he produced too was kind of cool. Cat Stevens is famous for having created some of the artwork on his early albums, like Teaser and the Firecat. He created that iconic painting on the Teaser and the Firecat album. David Bowie is yet another one. The other one who I came across, who I was really surprised at, I'll be honest with you, was Paul Stanley. Paul Stanley of Kiss is a visual artist, folks, believe it or not. His stuff is not bad.
How you doing, Toronto? In the greater broadcast area? Are you ready? I said, are you ready? Now, I don't think you people heard me. I said, are you ready? Cause I, for one, am ready. And you know what I'm ready to do. You know what I'm ready to do. I'm ready to do some. I'm ready to do some. Yeah, that's why we gonna do some painting here today. Can all you people in the back hear me? I said, can all you people in the back, can you hear me? Sometimes I get to feeling a little down. I get to feeling a little blue. And what I need is some phthalo blue. I call this my party time blue. Whoops, I got a little too much yellow ochre in with my phthalo blue. But that's okay, because there's no such thing as mistakes. There's only good time party. Yeah. So anyway, we gonna rock and roll. We gonna draw some little squirrels and shit up on this canvas. Yeah. Gonna do it.
So anyway, that will do it for this week's Shitpost Friday. I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you have, please hit subscribe down below. And for now, we will see y'all later.